Hello, welcome to the first episode of podcast UGC, the first podcast, and probably the only podcast, from StarbaseUGC.com. I'm Havraha. I do a lot of videos over here at Starbase UGC. We have a couple of other co-hosts with me. I have Alt. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Alt Exist.
And you do a lot of stuff over here at Starbase UGC too, a lot. I've noticed you chat in the chat box, and you've come up with a lot of missions. I should check this before I even brought it up. Do you have a showcase episode?
No, I don't. One of my episodes was pulled aside and may be featured in an upcoming showcase called Tipping Point.
That's why I remember it. Yeah, Tipping Point. There you go. But you won the Tribble Mission Spotlight in Starbase UGC, though.
Yes.
You're over there on the side, so
I did get
there's
that.
your cred. We got Terry.
Hello.
Hello, Terry. And Terry, you don't really work in the Foundry, but you're a huge story writer with Star Trek, and I think you play Star Trek Online, right?
I do. I have several tunes in Star Trek Online. I go by Terry Lynn S. I'm also the Star Trek columnist for airlockalpha.com.
Wow. So, yeah, that's a huge thing to have for the show, I think, because I've always said like 90% of the Foundry is story. You can be technically proficient with it all you want, but if you don't have like a good story to tell, that's, the Foundry is really a very, I'm going to get off on tangent now, but it's a kind of redundant thing. You can only do so much and the same things over and over again. If you don't have an interesting hook with your story, you're not going to have an interesting mission. So here's our story pro over here with Terry. We have Nemesis Chicken. Say hi, Nemesis.
Hi, Nemesis. Hi, everyone.
Who I have heard you're like the gung fu master of the Foundry. You can do things that we're still trying to figure out how you do them.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I guess sector space is a challenge for a lot of people. I didn't seem to have any trouble with that.
Wow. Well, you can make us a video on Starbase UGC and we'll figure it out really quick.
It's not so much sector space, it's how you return to sector space over and over and over again in your missions, which I'm still trying to figure out how you've done that.
You can write a post for us and we'll do it. Or maybe we can do it in the podcast, really not.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this is our first episode. I want to introduce us all, say what we're doing here. Really, we're just adding content to Starbase UGC because we have a lot of videos, we have a lot of posts, we have a lot of tutorials, but we don't have a lot of entertainment. And I started this little video series. It's kind of half tutorial, half entertainment with animations. But really, I wanted to do like a podcast just be fun, just to listen to things. And we're not going up against anyone else out there. I mean, we're just a bunch of guys who like to sit down and talk about Star Trek Online and the Foundry. But we have a lot of news sometimes with the Foundry, not always a lot though. So we're going to be talking a lot about just Star Trek Online news in general. I like to start out at least a podcast doing this, and we have a couple of things we'd like to hit on. First things first, and this happened a little while back now, the anniversary event. What'd you guys think?
I thought it was fun. I did like it. I think having Q come back and do some mischief and tail feathering it into the new Starbase was great.
Yeah.
I will say, I think the fountain certainly. I'll probably admit that I spent a little too much time farming in the fountain.
Yeah.
Good.
So, yeah. To say that it went over without a hitch is not accurate because that fountain caused a couple of problems, right?
Well, the first 2 days it was great. I got a couple of targs, and so, but then after that, I think everyone caught on to how it worked, and I just came up pretty empty on any of the cool stuff on it. So I think that was a little odd. And I will say Kronos didn't seem to have as much fun as Earth Starbase did, and a lot of people will accuse that of a non-Klingon bias by Cryptic. But maybe they could have had a little bit something extra, a little more barrels of blood wine might have been more fun over there.
Kronos had the giant women who I thought were Orions at first, or not. That was kind of fun. I mean, I loved them. I wish they kind of walked around and did something kind of else crazy. But it was kind of almost a slap in the face to have you reaching into a giant pile of tribble. You ever notice that? We hate tribbles as Klingons, but there's a giant pile.
But I didn't even know it because I had only been able to participate for about a day of the anniversary event. So I only got like 2 of my tunes on Earth Space Dock before, and I didn't even get to participate in the Klingon one. So all of this, you jumped into a pile of tribbles?
There's a pile of like giant tribbles, not even small ones, like big giant tribbles that you have to reach your hand into, apparently, to get the goodies that they're giving out in the pool. And, I was like, why are we reaching into the tribbles? That's not cool. I'm a Klingon. Actually, I'm a Gorn on the Klingon side, but we're not. Why? What was the decision process behind that? I don't know. But that fountain.
That's a little unusual. Yeah.
That fountain. I'm going to come back to the fact that of all the trouble it caused, but not the prettiest fountain, I have to say. I'm gonna like harp on Cryptic every now and then when I see problems, because people keep saying that is the exact fountain pulled out of Champions Online.
That's what I've heard as well. Yeah, that's the Champions art asset.
Is it retextured? Because it doesn't look it, man.
It didn't seem to be. Champions has a much lower texture quality to everything, and it sort of seemed like they just transported it right out of Millennium City onto Earth Starbase.
But it was fun. I mean, I like the idea. I knew that there was going to be a Q hovering above that thing because I saw a screenshot, but and I got totally confused when I saw him in 2 places at one time, in front of the fountain and also in front of Club 47. But I like the fact that they did something with it. They used some of the new environments, which is pretty fun. As far as events went, I guess I can't be disappointed because it was an event, and a lot of these games don't have events. I don't play World of Warcraft anymore. I did it one time, but I heard World of Warcraft gives like emails out to people with little, items attached to it for happy anniversary, and, there's no event from what I hear. I don't know if that's true or not. Do you guys know?
No, I don't actually play anything other than Star Trek Online, so I wouldn't tell. But okay. I think that I think the fact that they did offer to give some cool stuff, I think that was cool. I think the fact that everyone got one of the XP bonuses, which is the thing that they're sort of a little.
I fired off on accident because they add it to your system, your icon tray, your item tray for some reason.
I saw that and was very careful to put those into my bank right away because I was about to. I said, "That's a pretty icon. I think I'm going to click it," until I kind of realized what it was.
Yeah, I did click it because I didn't know it looks exactly like a power, that you can fire off. It doesn't look like an item you can use. It looks like, I'm going to fire this and heal myself a little bit. So I clicked on it thinking that it was, some power on one of my characters. I didn't really know what it was. And sure enough, I have to grind as much as I possibly can now to make use of my 8 hours of XP. But, that was kind of awkward. There's little awkward things like that, they didn't really obviously have a lot of time to smooth out. And when I first, look, I'm going to tangent again, another tangent. When I first started thinking about this podcast, I was afraid we're not going to have, much content. We're not even on to our next thing yet, and we're already filled up like 8.5 minutes. So, no more concern about content.
No, I think most of us could talk on and on about what's Star Trek.
There's no doubt how much.
Yeah, but I remember when I played Champions Online, because I got Champions Online really kind of in anticipation of this game. They had the Halloween event, and that was impressive. It's kind of like my new benchmark for events now, where you're fighting all over Millennium City. There's zombies, there's monsters, you're fighting things are coming out of the ground at you. I don't even remember what that was, but it was awesome. It came out of the ground at me, and I was like, wow, it's amazing. It's like a big giant rock thing growing. Kind of underwhelming now when you play the anniversary event for Star Trek Online, and it's Q, it's fun, it's questions, but the questions are a little easy. It was cool that we got turned into animals, and we got to see a little sneak peek of the Horta. And
well, I'm a little disappointed now, knowing what I know about the Horta, that it's that surprise for the mission was given away a little earlier. I mean,
it was a little lame, especially since in the mission, and this is an awesome segue to Mine Enemy, who was the next thing on our list. It was a huge kind of thing to have the Horta, because people have been asking for them. Where are they? And
people love the Horta. I'm not exactly sure why. I mean, I'm a big TOS fan.
Yeah.
And so I like the Horta and the mind melding with the Horta and all that. But there's something about the Horta that seems to really resonate with certain people.
I'm gonna go out on a limb.
I think I actually might have a theory as to why. When I first started playing the game, of course, which was an open beta, and was a heavy participant in the forums, there was a poll about whether or not what the next faction should be. And as a joke, the Horta was a
added
selection.
in there. Yeah. Well,
and it became an extremely popular answer. Just because the Horta was like the one thing we knew it would never be.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I think in Star Trek, they had budget concerns, especially in TOS, and the Horta are like the one element, this one time where they took their budget and they made something non-humanoid. It's this silicon-based rock thing that moves around, and it's apparently really dangerous. You never really actually saw that, I don't think, in the show. But, it's very unusual to see anything non-human, and I think there's that oil slick spill thing that killed Tasha Yar in the Next Generation, but that's like the only other time I can think right now off the top of my head.
Yeah, but how expensive was it to have a guy crouch down and throw a kind of rubbery
maybe not
blanket over him? I mean, that's kind of what the Horta was.
Yeah, I heard they had like a pennies for each costume, though, pennies to spare for each on their budget. So
I'm sure they did, but it didn't glow as much as the Cryptic Horta does.
Cryptic are awesome.
Lava flowing off of it, and I think the fact that when in this mission when the Horta touched the Romulans, they just disintegrated. That was
my
the
head
coolest.
Exploded.
I know that was the coolest thing. You didn't see that in the original episode. All you saw someone scream and do a close up, and then there was a little bit of spray paint on the floor where they were. So I think Cryptic may have spent more money on their Horta than Paramount did on the original Horta,
which I guess just goes to add to people's excitement for it. But then at the same time, they're underwhelming still, because despite all the improvements to it, kind of not much of a big role in the mission. You notice that there's kind of like it's a side plot, or there's a monster.
I almost missed the Horta. I was actually on my way out of the mine, running when the mine was ready to explode, and I realized I hadn't gone to that section of the map, and then I remember something about a Horta. I said, wait a minute, I'm not leaving this mission.
Yeah.
I don't care if the mine collapses. I'm seeing a Horta before I go.
And you got them.
I missed them entirely. I did the mission today for the first time, and I did not know that there was a Horta in it until you guys said something.
So
I got to go back and do it too.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of cool. I think that's one of the things about this one mission. I have to say, just as an overview, this mission I think has been one of the best, because it's more than just a linear mission. It actually has an environment where you can spend a little time exploring.
It is.
And then the Horta is basically a subplot. You could do the entire mission without ever going into that Horta chamber and rescuing the Horta.
Yeah, so one guy's underwhelming. You guys didn't really explore the Horta. It's also to someone else probably like a plus. You guys have so much content in this episode that we didn't have to, you didn't have to force feed it to us through pop-up, windows and stuff like that. So maybe it was a plus. Who knows? All I do know is that I like the pet, and the pet makes rumbly farty noises, which is hilarious. I can't get over that.
Well, I have a problem with the pet. My Horta, as cute as she is, has ruined the carpeting all over my shelf.
Oh, yes.
I have to pull it all up next week and get some asbestos carpeting to be laid down.
Fireproof carpeting.
It does.
I don't think I want to know how you found out it was a she.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we just designated it that way. Maybe, actually, are they all? No, certainly have. The one in the TOS episode was a she, and it was like the matriarch or something, so.
It was a she, and from what I understand, they do their hatchings every 1,000 or 4,000 or so many years. It all kind of dwindles down to one Horta, I believe, and something along that line. And so now if everybody has Horta and they start reproducing in eggs, it could get as bad as a tribble infestation.
Maybe a future plot coming on here for story-wise.
What do you feed a Horta?
Anything it will eat, really.
Anything it wants, right?
It can eat rock, so I guess rock mainly, but I mean, it can eat anything, I'm sure. All right, moving on. enough with My Enemy. It was good. We all agree it was good. I think it's probably one of the best things they've added so far, mission-wise.
I have to admit, I was really impressed by the mini movie inside. I had never seen that in the game before. I thought it was great.
Those cutscenes were great.
Yeah, they updated the Azura, the Stranded. I think the mission's technically called Stranded in Space, but they updated Stranded in Space with that technology too, which is cutscenes and things. We're probably going to be seeing more of that. They've said on the forums. I troll the forums all the time, so I'm going to tell you all kinds of things that they say on the forums that it's much easier to do on the ground than it is in space. So that's why you're not seeing many space cutscenes. But nonetheless, I think we're going to see more of them because they're definitely using their budget, especially with, I almost totally missed over this, the voice acting. What do you guys think of the voice acting?
The voice acting was great. It totally changes the game. I remember when Dabo first came out and Lita was talking, and I was like, this just changes the game. And my desire was that every mission giver text would be read to you, and that would just totally change the game. And they're starting to do that, and I hope that they continue that and that they actually go back to the other missions and redo all the mission givers to give you the voiceovers.
In saying that, they say they don't have the budget for that, and I believe it because voice acting is one of the most expensive things you can do in gaming. But I've also read in the forums a lot of people complained. A lot of people didn't like some people. I've heard some people say if you play the mission the Klingon, I don't know if you guys did, but the Klingon side does have their own voice actor for the Klingon guy. A lot of people said, he sounds too angry. Some people said Tanae sounds too stilted. And
he's a Klingon.
And what's funny is that Admiral Tanae, to me, didn't sound quite Vulcan enough. She almost sounded too emotional.
Yeah, with the way she sounded. And I personally, I just thought that they were all perfect, and that's just me. I'm not too picky, really, I guess. That's what it comes down to. But
no, that shouldn't be much of a criticism from me, by the way, because I really did like it, and I still love the voice acting that they've got, and I do hope they get the opportunity to do more.
It's adding a ton, and going back to the last week's mission with Obasek, who had so much dialogue you couldn't actually see it all. You had to pick a certain, kind of like chain of dialogue options, and each time you play that mission over again, you can actually just pick different options and get more and more different dialogue that you haven't heard before from that guy, which is very impressive.
Well, that's the great thing about these two missions. They're really starting to show that the missions are not just playable once, that you can come back with an alt or just even your own character and replay the mission again, and there's different things that you may have missed or not played through. And so that's what's making these missions even better.
Mm-hmm. Minor quibble with My Enemy. I keep saying we need to move on away from My Enemy because we can talk about My Enemy all day, but I'm going to say it again. There's certain when I played it the first time I played it with my main character who's a vice admiral, and he's really high on diplomacy, so I had no problems. But when I went in with my other characters, I haven't really done anything diplomacy wise with them. And when you're fighting, spoilers, guys, if you haven't, hopefully you've played it by now because we've spoiled so much for you. But spoilers right now. When you're fighting the female Romulan officer, can't remember her name, Janik, I think it is, and you beat her, she says, I surrender. And if you don't have high enough diplomacy, you have like your only option to reply to her is, stop lying to me. And you have to kill her, which does not make any sense to me whatsoever. I don't know if you guys felt similar to that. Had you seen that or not?
I think I had the option to either kill her or not kill her, and I really wanted to not kill her, but for some reason, I ended up killing her.
Yeah, it failed. Did it fail for you? I mean, it wouldn't bother me so much if you had the option to try and you failed, like you had. But my option with my character, which was like, only thing you could say was, stop lying to me, I don't believe you, and then you had to fight her and kill her, which I thought is really out of place for a Starfleet officer. Maybe for Klingon, maybe that's one of those things they had for the Klingon side, but really weird. Kind of weird decision there on that part.
Well, I don't know. My character I played it didn't have a very high diplomacy.
Yeah.
He has a bit of a quick temper. So it sort of fit in. I mean, it wasn't quite the most Federation Starfleet thing to do, but then again, my captain runs around with a ship covered with Borg parts. So he's not exactly high on Starfleet's doing things by the book.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so hey, who knows? Maybe they'll fiddle things.
And And quite the opposite for me. My character is like little Miss Squeaky Clean. She always plays things by the book.
Yeah.
She totally would have done things the diplomatic way. And luckily for me, now that I have found out that you have to have a certain diplomatic level, that I got to play that diplomatic portion out, which is what I have always wanted to do anyway. And now I'll be concentrating on upping the diplomatic ranks of my alts.
Yeah. Most for sure. Okay, moving on from mine. If I sit here any longer, I'm gonna come up with something else to say, and I'm gonna kill myself. So, moving on. Not this week. Was it this week? It might have been last week. Ask Cryptic came out. God bless Dan Stahl. I don't know what he does. I don't know if he just doesn't have a life, if he stays up, if he has, I don't know, gas or something. He stays up all night and just collects questions. Because there's 50 some odd questions in this Ask Cryptic. It's the biggest one I've ever seen. And I love Ask Cryptic so much. I mean, I think he's only ever answered one of my questions, actually. But I just do love it. And I've totally misplaced my tab for it now. But did you guys see anything out of the Ask Cryptic, the 50 some odd questions that sparked your interest?
I did see a couple things. I mean, I think they're great. I think that their communication that they're sort of giving to the players is great. So we sort of know what they're working on or what they're putting on the back burner. But a couple of things that really struck me was the currency things. One was a question about all the marks. I have to say, I have so many marks of exploration and marks of this that I never know what to spend them on, and they just sort of sat there. So I'm glad that they're thinking about pooling that into a better currency system where you're not sitting on sort of lower level things that you can't do with.
Yeah, you can't actually spend them after a certain point, I don't think. Or maybe you can, but you can't get enough to actually purchase anything of value, so they just sit there, yeah.
Right.
And that I noticed that from when I first started playing this game, and it was just getting stupid. I've noticed they've tried to change away from that, to where when you get towards in-game, there's not just one. There's an in-game currency, really. I think they're like, what are they called now? I forgot. But I think marks of valor or something.
Well, there's the emblems, and then I believe
emblems. That's what
marks of valor. I believe.
Yeah, there's other things.
Converted.
Yeah, the conversion. That is awesome, because that kind of fixes that to a small degree. Where if you have these other currencies, you can make them go to where you want to make them, and they're not completely useless. But they do need to just get rid of them altogether, I think, and replace them.
But now some people will have an argument with, especially with the EC, the energy credits, about having a monetary system in Starfleet. Isn't that all? Here's my question about that: wasn't money completely gotten rid of by this point?
It was.
But then again, I'm watching a lot of DS9 now, and it's all about money. It's all about gold press Latin. It's all about buying things at Quark's bar. So there's this sort of dichotomy there of, is there an economy? Should there be an economy in this game, or should there not be?
Terry, do you know anything about that lore-wise? You're really the lore expert here.
As far as the lore is concerned, the only time that it's really kind of ever touched upon, it's been the one thing that's been really touchy with the writers. I mean, from the very beginning. I know that Roddenberry made it very clear that he wanted it to be that kind of, for lack of a better term, utopian, where, especially as it's outlined by Picard in First Contact, where he specifies we don't have money and we don't, equate ourselves with the acquisition of wealth. Mm-hmm. If there is some kind of there was a back down kind of an issue, is how does the Federation then do business with members outside of the Federation?
Right.
And that's where this nebulous energy credits were come up with, which is why in Quark's bar, Federation members paid for their drinks with energy credits.
That's actually really quite revealing, because I had no clue where energy credits came from. I hadn't even really heard of them before I played Star Trek Online, and I was hearing in the build-up to this game that it wouldn't have currency in the game, but they were going to have prestige. So I guess you do more for the Federation, and you get higher honor, prestige, you get more well-known, and the prestige will get you more things, more resources allocated to you. which apparently they just gave up on altogether because I haven't seen.
I can't even. It would have been really difficult, and I happen to think they came up with as easy as it could be. I know that throughout not just the novels but the show, they do touch upon Federation credits, and that's kind of where it's stuck. So within the context of the Federation member to member, there is no economy, but between the Federation and other societies there is.
Well, see, this is one of those areas where I'm kind of glad they broke from Star Trek tradition and canon, because and player-driven economies are really huge parts of MMOs and kind of a big source of fun for a lot of people. And Cryptics is not the best. There's areas that can be improved with just user interaction of the exchange and things along those lines. But I really feel like they needed one. They needed to do this somehow, and if they chose to just depart from canon altogether or use, like what you said, this energy credit thing, good. I'm fine with it. I'm happy, because having some kind of economy is better than no economy for an MMO, at least. Even if we had to.
And to be honest, and in my opinion, I think it happens to work because in a probably as Starfleet-ish, as you could say, as it could for the game. I know that STO is the only MMO I've ever played, and probably will be the only MMO I ever play.
Yeah.
And when I talk to gamers who play other types, whether it be WoW or any other game, there seems to be a focus on that materialistic kind of gathering, the loot. It's all about the loot. It's all about what you spend. It's all about how much you have. Where in this game, because the focus isn't on the economy, it allows for better socialization among its players, as well as having just more fun playing the dang game.
Exactly. Yeah, you get to a point actually in the end game where everyone kind of has the same thing. Honestly, I have to, and it's kind of one of my complaints, because I have to say I'm not, I would not survive in the Roddenberry Star Trek world, because I'm a very materialistic kind of guy. I love the goodies, and I love having stuff that other people don't have. And one of my complaints about in-game is that everyone kind of has the same thing. Once you get there, the only stuff worth having is the stuff from the store, and the stuff from the store is all the same. And especially now, if you have the Borg parts, everyone wants the Borg parts, and if you got them, you're using them, because they're by far the best stuff out there. So, when you're saying that it's not about what you have, but how much fun you have playing, it's really kind of how it's come down to, and especially in game, because it's not, you got your Borg part, big whoop, who cares? Everyone has it, or not everyone, but a lot of the serious players, quote unquote, have it.
Yep.
So, also, I'm going to throw some stuff in there. This is kind of, I had this on the list for something to talk about. It's in the Ask Cryptic, actually. It's kind of a throwaway question. So I'm going to talk about it right now. The biothermal dampener. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. Hopefully you are. It's also misnomered as the cryo grenade. People hated it with a passion. It's been changed. So what it did was that it made a big snowstorm. It froze people in crystals, which didn't actually freeze you, by the way. You could walk around and get out of it. But apparently that's very taxing on your graphics or on the game engine or something. I know that sort of thing is not actually tracked by Cryptic servers. So it shouldn't actually hurt their servers that much, but it hurts people's computers a lot, and was causing them to either lag or crash altogether. I have lagged myself a couple of times from it. I have a quad-core processor. So it was a problem. It needed to be changed. Has been changed. Now it just makes snow. And I'm like, lame sauce, because there is nothing. Snow. Who cares about snow? I thought, maybe they could, I've said this in the forums too, maybe they could make like a different animation, something that didn't use physics on your graphics card, but like icicles that grow out of the ground, or something cool.
Or just I was getting a little annoyed by it too, especially with during the event where everyone's standing around their pile of tribbles, everyone was firing off the thermal things, and it really was totally lagging and destroying systems. But you're right, there's new system is kind of like, a little bit of Christmas morning, if that.
Yeah.
There was a graphic where the people sort of got iced over, and then there was the big, Scotch on the rocks ice cubes that came down, which then exploded. It was the exploding ice cubes that did it. Why not just have everyone crystallize or have that sort of film over them, which
or
looked
melt
cool.
or something? It's just just make it an animation. Just
Yeah, it was. But then again, this will stop people from doing it, and there really wasn't any point to doing it other than to just annoy people.
But now it's a throwaway item. Now who cares? It's when you go back.
You could actually fight the Breen and use it as a protection from your. I mean, that's the point of it. Is you're supposed to get your away team to have this sort of icicle in your blood and then go fight the Breen. You could use it for what it was designed for and not just trying to grief people.
Yeah, there's an idea.
I mean, it's a defensive buff.
Yeah. Well, the beauty of MMOs is that they can always change things. Nothing's ever in stone. And if they have a better idea of how to make this more interesting, they will certainly implement it. I'm kind of like, meh. I'm disenthused now with the whole biothermal dampener. I actually got in trouble with some guy. Actually, we're not supposed to talk about mod stuff on the forums, but this is not the forum, so I'll talk about it anyway. When biothermal dampener first came out, a lot of people loved it. A lot of people hated it. I love this camp. This is fun. This is one of the best things I've ever added. So I just kind of ran around throwing it at people, and I threw it at this one guy once. And he turned around and stopped and turned around and looked at me. And I thought he was going to say something fun. And he said, "Enjoy your time with the GM, noob," or something, and walked off. And I thought, that's an odd thing to say. Well, next thing I know, I'm getting, talked to by a GM who's very mad at me. "Stop throwing that biothermal dampener." And I was like, I didn't do anything.
Really? And that's strange. Most people complain that it takes forever to get a GM to do anything.
No, he came at me within 10 minutes. And I was like, oh my god.
Throw a biothermal dampener at somebody.
I've only did it once to that dude. A dude reported me for harassment, essentially. And it was nothing. And I kept telling the GM, this is what this thing was made for. You can't get on to me for throwing this item when the whole point of it is to throw it at people. So, obviously, it was Dan has said the item was a terrible idea on the forums. I don't think it was a terrible idea. It's just a complicated idea that has to have several layers of implementation going on.
I think they tolerated it until they basically opened up the number of people in each instance. Because before it was just kind of annoying, but half the people found it annoying, but the other people have found it the most fun thing to do, and so they didn't care. But then I think if you want crowded or instances, you're going to have to give up your cryo grenade. That's the basic thing. So they'll come up with something else, and it'll be problematic, and people can grieve with it. They'll change it. That's the way it goes.
All right. Moving on. Gorn. I'm going to talk about the Gorn because I have 5 characters in Star Trek Online. One of them is Klingon on the Klingon faction, and he's a Gorn. So this is relevant to me. I don't know about you guys, but over 6 months ago, they released fancy clothing for the Orions and the Nausicaans on that faction, and I patiently waited for that day because I wanted Gorn clothing, and nothing came. And that was the one time I really ever nerd raged on the forums. I feel really bad about it to this day because I'm pretty much good at not overreacting to things. But I got mad.
No, wait a minute. I don't have a Gorn. I have a Klingon alt which is kind of low level. He's a very well-dressed Klingon. He wears traditional. But do Gorns wear a lot of clothing? I mean, are you looking for clothing for your Gorn?
Well, something other than Klingon pads, I don't know. I think Gorn are shirtless often, too, or some sort of, bandolier. I don't know, something that felt more Gornish than... I actually think in TOS he wore, a leopard skin print outfit or something.
No, I think he wore the TOS one. He wore sort of a tunic, if I remember correctly.
It was like leopard skin, wasn't it, or something? It was like an animal print, maybe. Maybe I'm making that up.
I think you're making that up. I think you're.
Sounds sexy though, doesn't it?
That's the issue here. You want your Gorn to be a little sexier than he is.
He is a Mac Daddy.
But I have a question on the Gorn. I did see shots of a new style of Gorn that was being designed that kind of looked a little bit more dinosaur-ish.
American Godzilla. Is what
Yeah, a little
saying.
bit like that. Now, is that hasn't come out yet? That's still on the drawing board.
This is what this went to. Nothing came out. Everyone nerd raged. I nerd raged, and they said, "Don't worry, those clothing options are coming." A couple of months later, they say, "All right, guys, clothing options are coming, but what we're doing is we're totally reskinning the Gorn. We're redoing them." I guess they talked to CBS, and I'm just putting words in their mouth now, but I guess CBS said, "Yeah, the Gorn looked like crap. They look like crap because TOS had a terrible budget, so you guys go ahead, do whatever you want with them, make them look cooler." And they're making them look cooler. And I have to say, yeah, they look cooler. But at the same time...
Well, no, I think the original TOS Gorn looked really cool, other than their lack of sort of facial expression, movement, or any of that.
Texture and all that stuff, yeah.
Well, but I think that otherwise they looked pretty butch. I mean, they were kind of masculine. Remember, but no, thinking back at the Gorn, he had kind of a short skirt, and he pulled off a miniskirt really well, I think that, as far as a lizard man can.
Well, there's
very
problem
masculine.
Gorn in Star Trek Online, I think, because if you look at the Gorn in Star Trek Online, they look like the TOS Gorn, but they also, they look like a guy in a rubber suit still. They have that rubbery texture to their skin. And B, if you try to take those spiky things off their head, they look terrible. It's like you never see any Gorn ever with spiky things in their head, but if you take them off in Star Trek Online, they just don't look right anymore. And
if you take them off, they look like slee stacks.
Yeah, it needs to be
That's
fixed.
what it is. To me, it was just like, what's the difference between, when I was little, I always thought to myself that slee stacks were Gorn.
There you go.
Hey, I never thought of that.
I kept waiting for Holly to pull out a bamboo cannon.
Yeah. Anyways, they need to be fixed. Now, this is another thing, though. That, what you saw, that work in progress, it's a work in progress shot. That was shown a whole, several months ago, 5 months ago or something. That was the last we've seen of them. We haven't seen them at all recently. So who knows if they even still look like that. A lot of people came out and said, it looks like American Godzilla. I hate that. So then maybe they've changed it.
Now, there may be some Gorn love, which I think you're looking for, on the horizon, because I did see this, I don't know where, I think on another podcast where somebody had gone through and delved into the graphics of the game engine. And I only can think of one person who really can do that. But basically found an icon for a bamboo cannon, which is a possible weapon coming up. So there might be maybe not in this set of missions, probably the next feature set of missions has to do with the Gorn. Maybe that we're going to dovetail some of that. I think that what Cryptic might be doing, and I don't know, is now with their feature episodes or trying to tie in releases of some of the stuff with that. So my only thought for you and your desire for Gorn love is that the next feature episode might be about the Gorn, and we maybe see some of those things that they had talked about. Because usually when they show an image like that, a teaser image, they're pretty close to having it out.
Yeah.
They usually don't tease something unless they're really serious about it and it's going to be on the horizon. So maybe they put it on the back burner to annoy you, one, and second to tie it into a bigger picture.
I got a counter theory to that because I've seen that two bamboo cannon item, and I'm thinking there's an upcoming episode in the Cloaked Intentions, the Romulan feature series called Coliseum. That sounds a little bit like Arena to me. That is, of course, the episode in TOS with the Gorn. So since it's already there, I'm going to make the theory, go down the limb right now and say that the bamboo cannon is the reward item for Coliseum. Even though it makes no sense, and it's a Romulan mission, obviously. That's why
and the fact that the Mythbusters proved that the bamboo cannon just would never work or kill anything, much less a giant 6-foot man lizard.
It doesn't make it any less cool.
It doesn't.
That is true. That is very true.
So every day, it's gonna be my primary weapon now, bamboo cannon, when I go into the game. But also, I think Dan said in this Ask Cryptic, I can't even find it now, but I think he said that he's giving them till season 4 comes out to actually produce the Gorn because they want to do it justice, I guess. I don't know what I said. When this thing comes out, it better come with balloons and pancakes because they spent so long on this. Obviously, I think putting it off for one, but You know, I don't know when season 4 is even going to be coming out. I don't think anyone really does know.
Well, no, they've said possibly, and it sounds like a lot of things are being put onto season 4. It's almost now so much so that season 4 is going to be either the hugest update for this game, or they just can't possibly get everything that they're now talking about. But they are saying, I think, June and July. So some people are a little upset that that's an awful long time away from now. However, the amount of stuff they've said that they want to put into it is massive.
Yeah.
So they have to take that amount of time if they're thinking to make all the changes that they want to make.
One of which being the new, I guess, over-the-shoulder based combat system, which we have seen. If you follow Dan Stahl on Twitter, you probably saw a snapshot where he gave us a snapshot of him playtesting one of the upcoming Romulan missions, having a big reticule in the middle of the picture, which I replied to him, Dan, what is that? Is that the reticule for the over-the-shoulder fire thing? And he didn't reply to me, of course. But I think it's coming soon, because if he's playing with it, it's got to be working. And so that's definitely in the update for sure. Moving on, there's all kinds of things. We brought up that they are talking about fairly soon, it sounded like to me, kind of, I guess the guy worded it here in this question, vouchers for the Cryptic C-Store, Atari tokens, I suppose, being able to gift people items, which is a huge thing for me because I have a friend who plays a game, but he doesn't have a lot of money, and I want to give him all these little fun things. And this is like one of probably our big way to do it, for me to, gift him an Excelsior class starship or something along those lines.
That's a great thing. I had no idea that was going to be coming down the pipe.
Yeah, and you have an idea about this. You told me about it before we started recording.
Well, I think it's a great thing, too, because I've heard lots of people saying exactly what you would, that they want to gift somebody something. But I think that some of these community groups, podcasts, and such have talked about wanting to have contests and offer that as a reward. I mean, my thought was something like Starbase UGC offering a monthly contest to authors to create a mission based on a certain theme, time travel or fighting the Gorn or fighting the Klingons or whatever, and taking a vote on that and then offering a prize to that author of 5, 10, 20 Cryptic point dollars to buy stuff that they want.
It's the most awesome sauce idea I've heard like all week. I'm like, oh, we got to do it, but we're also really concerned about, like, is that allowed? Can we think it probably is.
I think so. I think we'll just, send a quick message over to Storm Shade, because he seems to be the one in charge of all things that are allowed or not allowed.
Yeah.
And I'm, see if we could do that.
And he has a beard. I found that out, which made me very happy.
Oh, you think he's dreamy now?
It's just a girl thing.
It's just a beard thing now? Is he attractive?
Oh, yeah.
You got your eye on him?
It doesn't matter. It's a beard.
Oh, that's because you love Riker. I was informed of this. You are the Riker fan. So
I am the Riker fan.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of something clever to add to that, but I really can't. He is, well, Storm Shade kind of is a Riker, I think. I
don't know about that.
I kind of think of him as a Riker because, look, Dan is like on the forums, he's the Picard. And I think actually Storm Shade makes more comments on the forums than Dan does, but
he does.
He's really the second in line for like excitement factor of, oh my God, Devers replied to me. Who is it? It's Storm Shade. Oh, he's like second in command. He's like Riker, even though he isn't. He's I know, but I see him as a Riker. He makes a good Riker for me, and he's probably, if he listens to this, which I'm sure he will be, he's going to hold his head like, God, shut up, please. But anyway, moving on. Have all kinds of fun things. There's my Gorn question I just scrolled past. Tholian updates, most likely baddies for 5 and 6. I don't know if you guys like Tholians or not.
I love Tholians.
You can Tholians?
I think what a great villain they can be.
I've seen the work in progress drawings. They look a little scary. They look like
As they
really
should. They're hot damn creature bugs.
I don't really know much. I know Tholian Web. I know the kind of basics. I don't know much about their plot line, storyline. I'm a role player, so I do dive into, probably not as much as you do, Terry, but I do dive into story bit because I have to write. Mm-hmm. And I don't know much about Tholians because they're just such a minor kind of every once in a while species that There's not much.
It's funny is that they're a minor species, that you don't really see in the original series. They only make that one brief kind of funky appearance in the Tholian web. Star Trek Enterprise, though, had a great section where you actually see one. Unfortunately, he's being completely tortured by Phlox. It's a Mirror Universe episode.
I love that episode. Really, it's one of the best episodes ever, I think.
But it really you really got to see what a Tholian was kind of supposed to look like, and I really liked it. It was good.
So they're coming. I'm gonna bring this up because it was asked. I keep asking this a lot too. Ushan. And if you go to, this is one of the things, I didn't know about this forever. I had a couple of friends in a party, and we were like, what are we going to do? Because there's nothing to do. We're all at different levels, and we really didn't want to, like, squad down to each other. So I was like, let's go to Andoria, because I know that when you go to Andoria, you can PvP. We went there, and all the NPCs are like, hey, PvP with your friends. It's Ushan. And we walked around, and we couldn't do it. And I kept walking and stumbling around, and I finally figured out, after posting the forums, it doesn't work. It's broken.
No, it's never been there.
It never has.
And the thing is, I think even Dan Stahl said, "Oh, that was a little joke we put in." I'm a big fanboy of Star Trek Online. However, that smacks of you never quite finished that bit
Ushan,
of code.
for one, is not a joking matter. It's a life and death battle. I mean, and two, that just screams that the game's not finished, honestly. Because when you come into Andoria is one of the first planets you can stumble across in the game. You go down, and if people come into this game and they walk up to Andoria and there's no Ushan, but it's saying, Ushan, guys, what? People are going to be turned off. I was turned off. And
that's true. It would have been better that they hadn't put that in for right now, that they had just left it for this past time period. Because I think everyone's gone to Andoria, done this, and go, oh, it's not there, and they've left, and no one's gone back to Andoria. Now, it does sound like they've got some new weapons in the work for this upcoming episodes, and you may see this turned on relatively quickly, which I think will be great. It'll be a brand new thing for people to do, and a lot of fun. Yeah. Hopefully they'll add it. But they really should have never turned that on or taken that dialogue away. Just let you explore Andoria, because it is a big map. Mm-hmm. Lots of things to sort of walk around, but not a lot of things to do there.
Yeah. He says in his answer, as soon as we get the Ushan weaponsmith in-game and set up the open PvP arena on Andoria, this will come in. I think setting up the open PvP area on Andoria is more important than the Ushan weaponsmith. I don't care about him. Give us a weapon for like a featured episode so we can have it, or even give us bat lifts. I don't care. Use anything. Just get it in.
This is a mechanic which I don't play a lot of Champions Online, but I played a little bit of it. One of the things that Champions Online has, which is kind of cool, in an open area like Millennium City, you're allowed to. I could challenge you to a PvP, and a little dome opens up, and you and I can fight.
Yep.
And everyone else can watch that fight. You
yes.
sort of see everyone duking it out.
I love that.
That would be great for Andoria. And I always thought that would be great for Drazana Station. I mean, Drazana Station would have been great if people were just constantly having firefight. It was one ongoing bar fight between Klingons and Federation.
So good.
To do that. I'm surprised because it seems to be that's built into the game engine or relatively easy to turn on. I certainly wouldn't want that everywhere.
Yeah.
But Drazana Station just seems to be, the perfect place to have a continuous, persistent bar fight going on.
Cryptic, you listening? Because this is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm squirming.
That's a great idea.
Okay. Moving on away from Ask Cryptic, because for like 50 minutes is around the corner on my recording.
Seriously.
Okay, moving on to actual Foundry content. I know it's podcast UGC. We've done everything except UGC here so far, and we have news. We actually have news. Most of the time we don't. If you haven't noticed, not crap has happened in the Foundry recently. Terry, I know you don't really mess with it. Maybe you want to try to now that you're on podcast UGC.
I really want to try, but I just am in that basic noob area where I'm learning the very, very basics. And thanks to UGC, to be honest, I'm
listen,
getting those tutorials down.
I'm a graphic designer, I'm pretty technically proficient in Photoshop. I can work Vegas. I can edit video. This stuff doesn't intimidate me, usually, these programs. I fired up Foundry and was like, what the heck? What is this?
So I'm not alone.
It befuddled me, and I would be nowhere right now at making a mission if I didn't have the videos from Kirk Fat and Darren Kittler on Starbase UGC that explain, okay, these are your basic beginnings. And once you get the basic beginnings down, like I said, there's not many things you can do. It kind of, you get the hang of it really fast. But
once you get over that sort of hump of understanding how that sort of story interface works, then it all sort of begins to flow. But there is a little bit of a learning curve if you're willing to sort of get past that.
Mm-hmm. And in the Foundry news, the Foundry's down.
Right. There's no Foundry.
Moving on, guys.
Foundry's down.
The Foundry's down. You probably heard. I don't know if you heard. I heard. Because I'm on Starbase UGC, but there is no Foundry on Tribble right now. Foundry is in beta on Tribble. Typically, it's been up. It's down right now, and the whole reason is because they're updating with the latest patch. And the latest patch is pretty awesome. I'm going to leave it at that. I would be all about leaking Foundry news on this podcast if I wasn't on Red Shirt. This is the problem. I don't know if you guys probably do or do not know. There is the holodeck, which is the main game server where everyone plays the game. There's Tribble, which is the test server where everyone tests the newest things coming out, so you know it doesn't break or it's buggy or people hate something, they can tell them. And that's where Tribble is right now, because the Foundry is right now because it's still in beta. And there is Red Shirt, which is the closed beta Foundry test chart. And some of us, for some reason, don't ask me why, I have no clue, were invited to Red Shirt, and we're still testing things, and I'm one of those guys. So I can't leak stuff, because I'm pretty certain I'm on some sort of NDA. I'm not sure.
Is there an NDA for Red Shirt?
I don't know. I have no clue.
I'm not on Red Shirt, so I have not seen all the stuff. But I have a question about Foundry going down on Tribble for a week. Are they repainting it? I mean, this is code. This does not usually take a long. Usually you update it and you do a file transfer. You don't repaint and respackle and hang sheetrock. That takes a week.
I was really perplexed by that myself because I don't think we haven't seen a lot of like a big update on Red Shirt in a while. I'll spoil that. I don't know if I can, but I'm going to tell you that it's been really quiet on Red Shirt for a very, very long time. And recently, we got a patch that added a couple of new features. Can't tell you what those new features are.
Well, wait. Are they the feature? I mean, there are features which we know are coming, triggers and branching dialogues. So I'm going to assume, without you telling me, that they are triggers and branching dialogues, to say the least.
I would say that's a good guess, but okay. I'm not going to say confirm or deny that's what's coming.
What they've said. They said that the Tribble was going down and that Red Shirt was getting the patch.
Yeah, there's something else in there that's very hidden. Not really hidden. You can actually, here's a little spoiler. You can actually kind of maybe spot it. On my newest video for animations, it's on the UI. I didn't realize it was there until I posted the video and was like, whoa, hope no one notices that. And really it doesn't give it away. But there's something additional that's not actually on the Tribble beforehand that you can spot in that video, and that's kind of another thing that's coming in it. But I'm pretty certain that's going on Tribble next week. Now again, I'm not sure why. I'm with you. Why is there a week? Maybe it took them a week to get it on the Red Shirt, but I don't feel like it, because Red Shirt, I know for a fact Red Shirt was down for about 3 days because another Cryptic team needed to use it for testing something. And as soon as it came back up, guess what? There was this patch of stuff. And we've only got to play with it for like 5 days.
My guess is there's internal database changes they've got to do to make this code work, so that week is the migration of our current UGC content to this new database.
And I spotted a bug like last Sunday, right before Monday, when they actually put everything on there. So maybe they're still trying to work out a couple of little bug fixes while they have their week of downtime. I don't know. But stuff's coming very soon. It's fun.
The other thing you didn't mention, which, because I've done such large missions, is copy and paste. That is going to be phenomenal. I can't wait for that.
It is. It's not obvious. I can tell you, there's not like you can't right click and have copy paste right there. You have to know the keyboard shortcut, which is, Control C, Control V, and that works. It works. It's there.
Yeah, that works for text, but the way I read this is we're going to be able to copy and paste entire nodes, those things.
Oh, I don't know.
It's been really something I've been looking forward to.
I have no clue. So I honestly can't tell that because I haven't checked. I don't know. But stuff is coming.
Well, as we were speaking, the engineering report came out, and it shows that it's in testing. Triggers, branching dialogue, cut and paste, plus quote-unquote other improvements.
Yep. There you go. So I guess I don't have to worry about it anymore, guys. They're spoiled. You got branching dialogue. You got triggers. You got quote-unquote other things. One of those other things being you can spot in my animations video, I'm telling you.
Well, now I'm going to check that out. But here's my question about the sort of Foundry, and one of the things that I think a lot of people have been anticipating it as a part of Season 3, which is really now we're
long gone.
Long gone. Is my question is what's the problem? What is sort of keeping it held? I mean, there's a set of tools that were released, and we've seen some missions that were created with it that were really great. We've seen the 4 Spotlight missions. We've seen quite a few other missions, which I think most people can say are really good missions. Give some of the developers a run for the money, at least for the original missions.
Yeah.
But my question is, I mean, we know that there's, as authors, that there's a pathing issue. They're shooting through walls. Is that what's the code that's keeping this held up? I mean, what is the sort of thing that's causing such a long delay? I'd love to know that, and we haven't really heard that from Cryptic.
I can give you my opinion because I do talk to them a lot. I talk to the devs a lot on Foundry stuff. My opinion on this is that what their pathing issue comes down to beaconing. Beaconing is how they set up like where your bridge officers automatically go, and that sucks. In fact, I'm almost convinced that the beaconing that's been happening in the Foundry just isn't beaconing at all. I don't even think it works because it's so bad. You can run into walls, and I'm getting like bad reviews on some of my missions because people are saying, "Well, I walked into the wall here." Well, I can't do anything about that. I'm sorry, dude, but.
Right. I even had my mission reviewed by Stormshade, and he gave me that there was problems with pathing.
What? I don't believe that. I think you're lying to me.
No, I will pull it. I will pull it. Stormshade gave me a review that said there were pathing issues in my mission. I called him on it. I twittered him back saying, "Hey, excuse me, I don't control the pathing. You guys do."
I'm a witness. I did see it.
That's a wonderful sense of irony there. But look, it's a branching thing. It's something when they did the showcase Spotlight missions that they just put on the holodeck for everyone to play. Q, who is the moderator Q, had to put these on the holodeck manually because the beaconing could only be done at that point in time, which is not too long ago, by hand. So what I have heard. Don't know where. I have heard that they have a new system that they're trying to implement that will beacon things pretty properly, relatively quickly, as in comparison to how it was before, which apparently it could take days to actually beacon something properly through an automated system. So that's coming out. I don't know if that's actually what's slowing them up, though. I think what's slowing them up on the Foundry and putting this thing out is that they don't know if they should release it or not, because the Foundry right now in its current form is very shallow compared to what they want it to be able to do. It's like it's very shallow, you can do very little of what you can actually overall possibly could do in the game, and we're concerned about whether they should go ahead and release it now or they should wait for a couple more updates.
Wait, what do you mean by shallow? Do you mean like the fact? I mean, there are only is it 4 or 5 tools that were given?
Yeah.
Go to. Is that what you mean by shallow?
That's what I mean by pretty much, because there's things that you can't do that you should be able to do. I've done missions where I've wanted to have a enemy beam down and start talking to my captain aggressively and angrily, and you can't do that because as soon as he beams down, he tries to kill you. You can't tell them, don't attack me yet, or, there's other things, believe me, there's a bajillion ideas for one of them.
No, I agree that, and I have missions that I have put on the back burner because I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't take a force field down, I can't do something like that. However, there have been some really shining missions, the Spotlight one's the one that we're going to talk about next, which is able to do a really strong mission with just the tools. I mean, it's with a pencil you can draw a stick figure, but Leonardo da Vinci can also draw an incredible drawing with that. It's not necessarily what your tool is. I think it's the creativity of how you use it. Now that's not to say I want them to sort of give it as, here's your 5 missions, 5 tools, and that's it. I don't think that should be a stopping point from releasing it.
Yeah.
I think that it's going to grow. And it does cause a dilemma. What happens when another tool comes around? Do the authors have to remaster their missions with a new tool? Or, I don't know. But I don't necessarily think that because it has a limited scope, it's going to stifle creativity. I think real creativity will be able to work around the limitations that they offer with that.
I can't argue with that.
I do think the pathing issues might be stopping it from launching. But, I don't necessarily know if depth is what the problem should be.
Yep. Okay. That's the Foundry. But we have started going on Starbase UGC. Obviously, I've come out with it's a little news for that. I've come out with I've talked about already, a little video that I'm calling Animations with Helena. That I'm going to be showcasing how all the different kinds of animations that you can actually do. And Kirkfat actually also brought up props. And someone brought up wandering in animations. So if you guys want to see what the animations look like in the game or have like a reference for what they look like so you don't have to pop in and out of the Foundry test map, check that out. That's one of the new things we have in Starbase UGC. We have a new chat box that we just put in like 2 hours ago. So Starbase UGC news. There you go in a nutshell. I'm not going to dwell on that. That's fun stuff. But I think we should move on to the mission review. We have, I think we're going to start with reviewing pretty much all the Spotlight missions, because that's the ones everyone can play with, and those are supposedly the best of the best, and we'll start with the best and then go down to the other ones that are not spotlighted yet. But, everyone always starts out with The Longing by Rachel Garrett, and I'm like, good mission, but let's break it up a little bit. So we're starting out with the Syndicate Extraction by Galactrix, who hangs out in Starbase UGC. A lot of us know him. So now we get the rat on his mission and be like, ha! What do you guys think? Give me your pin. We've played.
I'll give you a start on it. I'm going to start off by saying I like the mission. However, I'm not a big fan of the Ferengi. And I'm not a big fan of Orion.
Really?
Which is basically what this mission is all about. You basically, if you haven't played it, you have to go and extract a deep cover operative who's been spying on an Orion group of criminals. And of course you have to go to a base that's being controlled by a Ferengi and sort of free that person. I did like this mission. Overall, I do like it. And it's a really good showcase for the Foundry because it shows what you can do with the limited tool set that Cryptic provided for us and how to do some really creative workarounds. So I think the fact that you had some non-combat, non-confrontational parts of it where there were enemies there that you had to sort of sneak around seemed very Starfleet, that you had to not start a fight. I think some of the graphics were good, some of the three-dimensionality to looking at a map, not just necessarily two-dimensionally, but three-dimensionally, was great. And I think the fact that when you come down and you do start some ground combat and you've got somebody who you think should go with you the whole way, your sort of guest star, well, because the Foundry doesn't have pathing for that non-player character to come with you and fight, he basically says, gee, I can't because they recognize me. I thought that was a brilliant workaround for the limitations that the Foundry had put on it. Yeah,
it started to feel very much like an episode, and I think that's one of the reasons it was picked for a Spotlight thing. It feels like an episode of Star Trek. One of my issues I run into with it And I don't have the hatred that you have for the stars of the episode, which is the Ferengi and the Orions. I dig this really a lot because one of the side effects of absorbing the Orions and the Nausicaans and the Gorn into the Klingon Empire is that these are huge factions in the Star Trek, storyline that actually get ignored. They're just paved over by the bigger Klingon story. And this is one of the great things that the Foundry can do, which is you can actually spotlight, one of these little factions like the Orions. These are big players. They have their own agenda. They're out here doing their own thing. So I dug that. I really liked it. What I kept coming back to is a lot of the little quirks, Foundry quirks, and they really probably aren't actually quirks. I have being an author, I have like a really profound hatred for NPC contacts. Because I know what they do. They just stand around and they have a little eye over their head, and you talk to them, you press F, and that's all they do. I know.
They have the acting ability of Paris Hilton. They basically stand there and spit back what you told them to spit out.
There's so many better ways you can do it. I don't even use those anymore because I've watched Kirk Fat's videos. I know that what you can do is you can get a single targ, recostume them as a person, put an invisible object. Actually, he in his video was a volcanic flower, but now we have invisible objects in there to put down and use as like the interact thing for the pop-up menus or pop-up dialogues, and you can have them animate and act and talk to you and say other things beyond that. But and it's so much. What?
The non-play characters didn't bother me in this. I know the limitations of them, but they didn't seem to bother me. And I like the fact that as you get to the story point, there were lots of non-player characters that you could talk to that had really not much to do with it, that had things that were going on in the station. It's funny because My Enemy really had that same feeling too, where you sort of explore around, and it's almost as if they were doing the same thing that this mission was doing before. They did it.
Dante, it's funny that you say that because today was the day that I played both of these missions. I played the Syndicate Extraction before I played Mine Enemy this evening, and there was a point in time when we were discussing what I was listening to the two of you talk about Syndicate Extraction, and unfortunately in my head, my brain was remembering things from Mine Enemy, and I had to go, okay, no, the mine was not the base where I was when I was, I loved the Syndicate Extraction. I loved the story. I loved the fact that it involved Orions. I liked the idea of having to go in and get an operative. I think what I really enjoyed the most from the story was the fact that at the end of it, there wasn't the typical writer's ploy of, oh gee, she's a double agent. Yeah. I was really expecting, oh gee, you're going to end up in this big firefight, which really would have been a mess because of the pathing problems I had. I only got one boff to stay with me through the whole thing.
I noticed that too.
Yes.
So I ended up in the final room, and thank goodness, the chemo, not the chemosite, but whatever I could bring my security team with me.
Yeah.
And I was playing my tactical at the time, so I could bring down my security team to help me get through that kind of final battle issues. But other than that, I really enjoyed, the writing, the story. I liked the idea that the fact is, at the end of it, they really were who they said they were going to be, and you got to really take that person out, and you got to accomplish a mission, and you got to feel good about it. I enjoyed it. It was fun.
No, I agree. I also like the fact that one of the final battles, or the big battle, is in the fighting ring. And the fact that after the battle is done, all the people are standing around I don't know if they were doing it beforehand, but they were all applauding.
Yeah.
Like, I had just taken out like 13 Orions that beamed down, and they thought it was a part of the show. They were all clapping.
Was really fun.
Unfortunately, the Ferengi was killed as collateral damage during that mission, and yet because the author had known that is a possibility, which I've had that done on my missions, and the mission becomes unplayable after that, he then was able to have that character continue the dialogue to go through it. So I love that little trick. However, I'm going to say one other thing is I'm also not a big fan of multi-arced missions where you have a mission that has 4 or 5 parts of them, because I'm always a little wary leery of picking up a mission like that, because you don't know if the author has really done the end of it. Yeah. However, when I got the agent back to my ship, she was like, well, I'm only going to tell Starfleet security what I've learned.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I have a big ship and there's Borg parts on it. I'm kind of an important person.
Tell me.
I kind of was expecting her to say, we now have to go and solve this. So it really was a great lead up to another mission, and I kind of wanted another mission. I felt like I just saved you, yet I'm not good enough for you to tell me this information.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's another one now, because it's a spotlight mission. It's one of the best of the best, apparently. So, yeah.
I just found it really fun to play, and at the end of it, I felt accomplished. I had a good time, and I was impressed with again, not just the story, but the actual feel of the surroundings and the, for lack of a better term, the ambiance of each of those rooms. To go in and to see the dancing Orion girls, I kind of thought, this is exactly what an Orion Syndicate, trade station should look like.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little bit busier, but they got close.
Yep. So obviously I'm strange in the fact that I'm hating on this mission for doing what it's supposed to do, which is use NPC contacts. And the reason I'm hating on this is because I have a different, there's a lot of people in Starbase UGC, even in conversation, you'll hear, I think I'm going to put words into his mouth, but Rachel Garrett is one of the people who are really very much like, you should play by the rules. You should make a mission that goes by what Cryptic has recommended here of how to build the Foundry mission. And I agree with that to a degree. I am of the opinion that you should do it and make your mission look as professional as you can up to a point. And it's really this is an artistic tool, and we should be allowed to do whatever we want with this thing. And there's someone on Starbase UGC named Ashter who makes some really far out missions that completely take all the rules and throw them in the trash can. She's done a mission where you no longer are your character. You take on the role of a character she's made, Pell, and she's assigned you a whole new crew, and you're on a whole new ship, and you're not in Starfleet, and you're doing something radically different. And a lot of people didn't like it. I gave it 5 stars in a review, because that's what this thing's all for, in my opinion. It's to make your Star Trek stories come alive for people to enjoy. So when I see that we can do new things on Starbase UGC with, using invisible boxes and targs and things, I'm really like, okay, stop using those NPC contacts. Use those. And so I'm hating on that mission. I know I'm being unfair because of that, because I feel like almost every mission that's probably a spotlight mission that we're going to see probably uses all the Cryptic tools perfectly, 100% correctly by the book, and we're going to see every other mission following this in Spotlight is going to use NPC contacts. I know the logging already does because I've played it, and so I'm being unfair in that regard, but that's where I'm coming from. I'm just forewarning you that if I see an NPC contact, they're called out, because you shouldn't use those anymore until they fix them. Watch a freaking tutorial on StarbaseUGC.com. Get it figured out. Make some freaking animations for me, guys. I'm telling you. So there you go. Any other comments?
I think he did a great job. I think the level of detail in his story was phenomenal. You could obviously tell he spent a lot of time in the Foundry putting together all the things that Terry and Dante mentioned. It was a great mission.
It is. I'm gonna give it that. It's a great mission. My little irks. Fix those things. Also, I did have a weird part in the mission where there's a part where you're flying towards the base itself, and there's all these Orion like ships in little squadrons hanging out like a minefield, pretty much. And you don't have to fight them. But
I went around them.
Yeah, exactly.
Went around them.
Yeah, I just went above them.
I see. I went around them and I went above them because that's what. If you don't have to fight them, you don't fight them. I got completely lost after that. I was like, where am I? Where is this base? Where am I supposed to be going? And I started hitting the waypoint button. Didn't work because I think that only works for interactable objects, which was not a waypoint. And so I couldn't find where I was supposed to be. And so I turn around and all I see is this giant minefield with the ships, and I'm like, I'm screwed. So I spent like 10 minutes trying to figure out how to get back to this base.
No, the base was a little bit bright. It didn't have a waypoint circle on it. That's I will give you that. It didn't have that, but I think you just got lost.
I got lost.
That's
it
you.
was marked on the map.
It was my fault.
I think you need a better navigator.
Yeah, for sure. My stellar cartographer Helma needs to get her act straight. That's a little joke from everyone who knows Helma, my little NPC I use all the time. But anyways, that's our mission review. Syndicate extraction. We've done UGC news. We talked about all kinds of things. Oh, one more thing. I skipped over this, and actually, we're having a little. I need to get a sound effect here for a segment we should have called Nerd Rage of the Week, where we will go into the forums and we'll find like examples of just nerd rage of people freaking out over something they shouldn't freak out about. And I think in this, was it in this Ask Cryptic? I do not know. Maybe it wasn't.
I think it was.
But Dan, again, I feel bad for Dan because he thinks we're very mature Star Trek fans. like we ought to be, because Star Trek is, a very smart, intelligent series. We shouldn't be like, little kids nerd raging over their latest game. But for some reason we are in the forums anyway. He thinks we're mature and will react well when he gives us, to be decided kind of sneak peeks about stuff. And so he tried to tell us some ideas that they've been throwing around for what might possibly happen for the Romulan faction. It went down terribly on the forums. People freaked out. I was reading this thread like, people, calm down. But he suggested that the Romulans might split into two factions. And there may be Romulans that support the Federation, there may be Romulans that support the Klingons, or maybe even more specifically, the Starfleet will side with the Remans, and the Klingons will side with the Romulans. And I thought, I don't know, I'm going to ask you guys what you think about this, but it went bad down on the forums. What'd you guys think about this? Especially you, Terry, because you're the lore person. Have you seen that thread? Do you know?
Are you ready for my opinion on this?
All right, go for it.
Yes.
When it comes to this idea, my first instinct was, I'll be damned, they may have gotten it right.
Yeah.
And the reason is strictly because we were all, and most of us are still pretty bitter about the destruction of Romulus and Remus with the J.J. Abrams film. Mm-hmm. It's like the one thing about the Abrams film that really pissed off a lot of Canonites.
Yeah.
And
bajillion
bitter
things
pill.
got me mad about that movie, but I'm not going to go into that.
Oh, I have many things to say about that movie, but really it's the one bitter pill that those of us who love the prime timeline we're now left with. And if you're a Romulan fan, that was a really hard thing to take, was to sit down and say, gee whiz, what was supposed to be a very proud people has now been destroyed.
My main character is Romulan, so.
I really do see that. The natural evolution from a story along this lines, specifically when it comes to Romulus and Remus, is going to be kind of what we're getting in the new feature episodes, which is this building tension between two, what were sister planets, but were never anything but enemies at the time.
Yeah.
I see this as a huge civil war. I think it's a perfect evolution of the story for Star Trek from the destruction of Romulus and Remus. And if Romulus splits into factions, I really think it's just a great way to go. It builds drama, it builds tension, it gives a lot of basis and potential for story creation. As a creative type, I think that, boy, that would be a great thing, not just for the Foundry, but for the game itself.
Yeah, he came back in and clarified that this was not going to destroy the concept of a potential Romulan faction. There'd still be a Romulan faction added to the game at some point, but this would probably be like an ongoing plot, for that faction of now I was sitting here thinking about it, you make a Romulan character, now you have to decide, well, whose side am I on here? Am I for this side? Am I for that side? They could have some interesting things going on here with NPCs on that faction when you're playing as them, because some NPCs may not want to help you if you're helping the Remans, or if you're helping Sela, or if you're helping, if you have a Federation sympathizer in your group or something. And so there's lots of things you can do with it. I thought about that for a while, and I thought, a lot of the problems people have with it were that Klingons and Romulans do not get along. They should not get along because they're Klingons and Romulans. But I thought about that and said, maybe that's kind of, it's really poetic almost. I kind of like the idea that these are a species that have hated each other forever, for a very long time, and yet it's not peace but war that brings them together and makes them see eye to eye with a common enemy being Starfleet, which I dig it. I'm siding with that idea now. Remans, kind of monstrous, but, they've been enslaved for really all this time, and Starfleet has a soft spot for slaves. So, again, this is like one of those weird things that you don't think would work, but the more there's logical reasoning behind it, the more I'm all behind it. I want to see it happen now. I want them to take the most radical, far-out, crazy idea they can come up with in this area and make it work, because the bolder it is, the better, I think. My personal opinion. I don't know what you and Alt, Nemesis, what do you guys think?
I wasn't sure, but now I'm totally thrown for a loop because they all sound like a good idea. I do want to make sure that if they do it as a separate faction, it becomes a third faction. I think that most people were concerned with the fact that they were just going to let you fly a Romulan ship and be under the Klingon side, or fly a Romulan ship under the Federation side. I personally would like to fly a Romulan ship, but I'd like to fly it under a Romulan flag.
Yeah,
so
true.
As long as they're able to make it a sort of a separate third piece, where maybe one side is be able to do more Federation pro missions, and other sides maybe do more Klingon pro missions, it's fine. I also can wait. I'm a patient person. I'm working in the Foundry. I'm required to do that. So I do agree that they do need to give the Klingons the love that they deserve. I mean, every Klingon needs a hug every once in a while, and get those guys up and running, and then do the Romulans. I think it's something that they should wait to see once everything else is sort of built up a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was hearing Terry talk about it, the first thing that came to my mind was that old saying about the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and it makes natural sense where that factions could go that way. Yeah,
I agree entirely. So we're actually all in agreement that we want to see this just go crazy. In a way.
To me, it's almost it would if they're really going to do this, I really want them to do it. I want them to do it right. I want them to make it, just something really powerful, and do with Romulus and Remus what they should have done with Cardassia. This whole True Way line was something that never quite came into fruition, and really could have if they had put their talents into it.
Yeah, it's kind of the True Way is almost kind of an excuse of why are there still aggressive Cardassians really in this story for us to fight. So yeah, I agree. So really, that's great. We've hit on it all. We've hit pretty much everything down the list. This was our first podcast, UGC, episode 1. I'm completely befuddled now because I had no clue that we would fill up an hour and 40 minutes of recording. I was sitting here thinking this is going to be a 20-minute podcast. No one's going to want to listen to it, but we're just going to do it for fun. Now I'm concerned if I'm going to be able to put this how I want to do it, because I was originally going to put it as a YouTube video. I don't think YouTube's going to let me make an hour and 40 long freaking YouTube video.
Yeah, that might be a bit long.
So, yeah, I'm going to have to figure this out. I'm going to talk with Kirk Fat, and maybe we'll post it as an MP3 file, or maybe I want to make it still a video because I want to be able to put video of Galactrix's mission in there as we talk about it, and hopefully that'll be done when people are listening to this and they can actually watch a little bit of it in there. But yeah, maybe we'll just post that directly to the website itself. Who knows? We'll figure it out though. This is our first podcast, UGC. I'm Hav. Thanks for listening, everybody. we'll see you around next week. I don't even know if this is going to be once a week, once a month, twice a month. Who knows? We'll get around to it. But it was fun, right, guys?
Oh,
Definitely. Absolutely.
Definitely.
We enjoyed it, and we enjoy
Until
doing it.
next time.
Hopefully, you guys enjoy listening to it, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.